Here we go. Hi, I welcome everyone to another episode of Procurement Horizons. Today I have with me someone phenomenal. His name is Madhav Rao and he's been an inspirational leader I had the opportunity to work with very early in my career. He's had a stellar 35 years career at P&G in supply chain leadership roles, leading innovation in areas right from lean management, TPM, to digital manufacturing, supply chain innovation. And now he's helping other organizations modernize their outdated systems, integrate automation while focusing on a people centric culture. That's something he's super passionate about. So, as the CEO of Facers Global, welcome, Madhav.
Thank you very
So
much.
happy to have
Yeah,
you.
thank you for the nice words, first of all. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and catch up. So great, and thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I wanted to tell you, Madhav, I come across a lot of people who've spent 15 to 20 years in their career and they don't have an image of what good leadership will look like. So that's why I always feel very fortunate that it's very clear what I'm looking for and what I had early and what brought out the best elements of my personality. So always thankful to you for that.
No, I am humbled, and the feelings are mutual.
Looking back at your 35-year journey with PNG, what do you think are the three moments that stand out for you today?
That's a very interesting question because when I was actually leaving PNG, I was thinking and looking back to say, what are those times that would quickly come to my mind? One of them is during my stint in South Korea, where somehow our volumes were not growing the way we want. And then we had to tell 30% of the organization to leave. And this was very dear to me. I was the operations lead at that point of time. I was reporting to the plant manager. And my plant manager, Steve Skogard, one of the best managers that I ever had. There were many. He's one of them. And we had a chat and we said, what do we do? And both of us decided that we need to share a year ahead because we were going to shut down a year later. Now, this plant was unionized and there was a threat of a business interruption. So it is like, do you take an easier way out to really, go closer to the 1 year and then say, hey, 30% need to be separated? Or do we plan it a year ahead, be very transparent in our communication? And
Mm-hmm.
be honest and make sure that we are actually helping people as much as possible. There were about 80 employees who would have been affected. So we wanted to take this call, of actually, you know, calling them and telling them that, we will probably have to shut down these lines. So at that point of time, my boss's boss, he was not pretty aligned, but he subtly told us that if there is a business interruption, both of us are going to lose our jobs. So we said, no, we have to do the right thing. So we actually called everybody, we announced, and then for the next 3 4 months I did not do any of my operations job. I was having a big computer in front of me and I was having one-to-ones with every single employee who would be affected. There were frustrations. I was hearing the frustrations there. Some people were crying, some people said we have not informed our wives, our families yet. So it was pretty stressful, I would say, at that point of time, to a level that I even had to go through certain counseling sessions, trained properly. Some people wanted to open restaurants, some people wanted to open a shop. We were making sure that they have adequate finances to manage with, and they have that know-how of what an entrepreneur looks like. So we opened an entrepreneurial cell inside the plant, where
Mm-hmm.
all these kind of trainings and hand holding was happening. Definitely psychological counseling was happening to a lot of these people. They also promised, if you take care of us, we will make sure till the last day the performance doesn't drop. And that they were very clear. And then they could see in us that we are genuinely trying to do everything possible for them. The good news was, towards the end, majority of the people got what they wanted. They were much happier. They were sharing these with their families. Some people opened, some of the restaurants and other businesses. We were running at very high efficiencies of these lines, and they said, we don't want to push the red button. We want you to come and push the red button. I had to go push the red button to stop those lines. That was pretty emotional. And arranged a farewell and said, hey, we will have the farewell in the same restaurant where one of the employees, our ex-employees, has opened a new restaurant. I went there and you won't believe all 80 people showed up for my farewell. Um, the union gave me a golden plaque, which is still there in my living room. And they said that thank you for taking care of us and doing what is right. That was very rewarding for me. The second one, having women in Hyderabad. So this was tough to go through all the industrial certifications. It took us almost a year before we could zero in on the land. We could, yeah, yeah. And one night I was sitting with Srinivas, who is now the country head for HR in India, and we why don't we hire women, in shifts? He said, "That's is that possible? Because I've not seen any plant doing that." I said, "We can try. Let us see if we can try." But then it was shot down, saying this is against the constitution, manufacturing industries, though essential services like nurse or some of the hotel industries or any other essential services, women are allowed. Women are not allowed in manufacturing industries, and that was the norm at that point of time. There was one lady by the name Richa Bakshi in HR.
Yeah, I remember.
She saw a newspaper article where Kirloskar in Pune, in India, they were having two shifts where they had women in manufacturing. So immediately Srinivas called me and then we said, okay, let's fly to Pune and see. So myself and Srinivas, we went there and we figured out that they went to the court. The women went to the court and in Chennai, I think this happened in Chennai. And in the High Court, they gave an order with a list of things to say, yes, if you have a consent of joining the company, you can, but then the company needs to comply on certain safety norms and facilities for women and stuff like that, which PNG does maybe far more than what was listed there. We said this is cool, so we took that certificate, flew back, and there was an industrial minister at that time in Hyderabad, India, and she happened to be a woman, so that also added a few brownie points to us. So I went to her and I said, "Ma'am, we want to hire women." She said, "We already have women in manufacturing." Uh, she said, "We already have women in shifts." I said, "No, ma'am, we don't have women in manufacturing. We have in other areas." Then she understood the problem. She said, I cannot change the constitution. But she said, if you can get a consent from each of these women saying that we are willing to work in shifts, and if you comply with whatever the high, that is something we went out of the box. We were lucky to have this kind of stuff. The third one was Germany, where unfortunately, I would not talk COVID stuff because everybody went through that. But right after that, we had one of the worst flood. Somehow that city was not ready for it. I was sitting at home, and this was on a Sunday evening, and my HR head, she lives very close to my house, and she gave me a call saying that the plant is flooding. And this is a big campus. It has 2,000 direct and indirect employees, 49 nationalities, end-to-end supply chain with R&D, product innovation, biggest site for manufacturing, and a huge distribution center. She said the whole campus is flooding. So I said, let's go. But we managed to reach the plant and a lot of place water coming in. People were pumping this out. We were not ready for this. And then I did not know what to do. I said, people are doing their job, then how will they go back? It kept getting worse and worse because these streams, they come from the Alps and
Oh,
then
yeah,
they,
yeah.
after 36 hours, both of us, we were trying to drive back. And just when I was coming out of the campus, it still gives me goosebumps. There was an old lady without shoes, and this is Germany, mind you. She was coming into the plant saying, hey, can I take a shower? Because my whole house is washed out and I haven't eaten for 24 hours. And when immediately we said, go in, we have a shower area and you can sit in the cafeteria and eat something. Somehow that area, the industrial power was there. And when we stepped out, we realized we just looked around, all industries had shut down. They all went home. The factories were shut down, industrial area was shut down. That's when I realized the extent of damage. The trees fallen all around, cars had drifted onto the fields. It was pretty bad. Uh, I told my HR lady Bettina, we need to keep the plant open because the industrial power is there. Let's keep the plant open to trace every single employee. I want a report. We should have a 15 people emergency response team. They need to where they are. She said okay, and then we went back within 6 7 hours, less sleep, stationed ourselves in the campus. Things started flowing. The sense the city mayor called up and he said, listen, my whole office is flooded. I cannot manage my emergency response. I've heard you are the only industry who are open. Can I come and set up my office with you? We said, yes. We immediately told the IT folks to set up an office and city mayor
Huh.
and every. Then that's history because the army came over. We had everyone coming into the site for food. We emergency response team, which is the government emergency response team. We provided beds for them. Managed to get a truck from Poland for with all the night beds. Of course, we did not do it for the sake of getting publicity, but then this was on TV. We were invited for some certain interviews. What we did was something in sync with what PNG thinks. When you are in need, PNG really steps up to a very different level.
So remarkable. I mean, and very touching. I knew about the South Korea story. Hyderabad, I have seen that, but oh my God, this Germany one, like the way you described it was like you're talking about a fast paced action thriller movie. I had no idea about the extent of damage that happened in those
Yeah,
floods.
I
So
still have newspaper write-ups in German, but you can you can look at them and
those are like brilliant examples of compassionate leadership, what PNG is about, and the leadership that we see on the ground and, in critical moments. And I'm sure like everybody who's going to listen to this is going to have a similar feeling that they might not have heard stories like that, pushing the limits with, the laws and local regulations and stepping up in critical moments. And even that example of South Korea, what I really like about that is that I have not heard anywhere of a company helping people adapt to change in a way you're helping them with their future. Of course, there was a business need that they could not continue in their present workplace, but I haven't heard stories of companies helping people find work after that. So, yeah, all three are brilliant examples. Thank you. Now, Madhav, you're an expert on supply chain. I am still a novice. I've mostly been on the procurement side. And I know a lot of people are super excited about, growing in supply chain and being a part of those massive enterprise transformations that you've led, not only in India, Korea, Japan, folks in Middle East, North America, Germany, and probably many places across the world. It'll be really good to understand a bit more of what would be critical parts to focus on for leading such kinds of transformation. I know your focus is always the first people. I would like you to talk about some of those other elements along with people.
when I started my career back in India, I did not learn much because I did not, unfortunately, have very good coaches. So it was a waste of time. And normally, everything depends on how good your coaches are. I'll go back to Steve Skogard, one of my bosses back in South Korea. I was moved to South Korea for this TPM lean management for other industries who don't understand what PNG does because it's a patent. I don't want to use that terminology. And then I had, created a document which was in the TPM system pretty open that everybody's supposed to find and fix defects. I felt that people are not finding and fixing defects, and I wrote some standard operating procedure. I called the department manager and said, you need to go in and make sure that this is deployed. It was not taken very well by, by the people. And because it's a union, I also did not have too much of credibility with people. And I'm, of course, an outsider coming from somewhere else. So I saw my name in English. By that time, I can read and write Korean, but at that time it was only Madhav was written in English and something was written in red and it was posted on, on a union board. I looked at it, I said, okay, I'm in trouble. Something is wrong here. So after a while, my plant manager was looking for me, and Steve has an amazing style of leadership. He was in the corridor somewhere. He said, "Let's grab some coffee." I said, "There's something written there." He said, "You have deployed something." And I said, "Yeah, I did." Then, and I said, "People should do this. People should do that." He asked a very, which is relevant today, but it took me by surprise. He said, "Do you know how to operate this line?" And I was taken aback to say, "Really? You are expecting, I'm a manager, you're expecting me to operate the line?" I didn't say that. And I looked at him very blank. I said, "Why are you asking?" He said, "No, I'm just asking, do you know how to operate the line?" I said, "No, I don't." Then he said, "Listen, stop all that you're doing, attach yourself to a team, go to the locker room with them, change your dress with them, eat in the cafeteria, come in, come out, be a part of their shift. I will never ask you anything else. Just be with them." Spend about 4 to 6 weeks being with them. I didn't like it. I said it's an expat assignment, and what the hell he's trying to put me onto the lines and stuff like that. And then reluctantly, I got into one team. Oh, those guys said, "Here comes the guy who wrote this SOP on defects." They gave me the SOP and they said, "Go find the defects. This is your job. Now you are operating the line and you might see a defect. I don't know, where do I record the defect? The monitor is so far off. I don't want to leave the line with the scare that the line will stop."
Mhm.
So there were a lot of things that I realized you cannot do this till you're really grounded, and you have to understand how do you enable people. It's not about just pushing something. So enabling part is absolutely critical. And you
Mm.
where I got qualified by one of the department managers. I told him to qualify me on every single machine myself,
Mm.
and I was by that time leading the plant already. I was also pushing some of the guys when they were joining as process engineers to say to operate this line without anybody's help, and I want you to come back and tell me the process flow. This makes a big difference, and it comes naturally in certain countries. For example, Egypt, everybody's grounded, even from and that's why they are super duper leaders. They have been very successful in the supply chain outside Egypt, everywhere, very grounded people. Germany, it's just you're born engineer, you will be fixing your own plumbing, your own everything at home as well. So I think this is something that being grounded and making sure that you are understanding the nitty-gritties of the entire supply chain, because as leaders we have the cutting edge to be able to do the problem solving part, which is we have that ability because of the sheer education we have. We can think logically. However, the missing piece is if we are not grounded, then it becomes very difficult. You're more superficial.
Yeah.
So the secret of success in supply chain is to really. A lady went and her kid was eating a lot of jaggery. She went to Gandhi and she said, "My kid eats jaggery, but she respects you a lot. So can you please tell her not to eat? Then she'll stop eating because it will spoil her health." He said, "Come tomorrow." And then she went again. He said, "Come after a week." Then she went again after a week. He said, "Stop eating jaggery." That's all he said. Then the mother said, "I came 3 times. After a week, you're telling her to stop jaggery." He said, "That's because I was also eating jaggery." I
Yeah.
started enabling people and empathizing with them, making sure that you're understanding the whole supply chain. Now, to build career, it is a passion. If you are not waking up every single day thinking what difference would I make, and if you don't like that, you're not comfortable with people around you, then you should not take it up. Probably do something else. I'm not saying the other jobs are not good, but I'm just saying that every job adds value. But then if you're not enjoying it, there's no point doing it. So you need to have that aptitude, be grounded. Those are the two secrets that every single successful leader I've seen who have been success.
I love that. Like, practice what you preach. And thank you for reminding me of that Mahatma Gandhi story. I had almost forgotten it. But during the mid part of the story, I kind of got up. And you're right. Probably culturally, sometimes we have that barriers we have to act a certain way in some cultures, but on ground leadership is what counts, and that's what sometimes we learn the hard way. And yeah, bringing everyone together, enabling people, collaborating, those are some things I would, have seen in the best leaders out there. Now, Madhav, I want to talk to you about procurement. You've partnered with procurement quite often, and I remember when I was doing a procurement role, which is called purchasing within PNG, we were interacting. I would love to hear, what do you like about working with procurement, and one thing you think we can do better?
One of the strengths in PNG has been where different functions collaboratively work together. I was born and brought up in PNG. I never thought this is a separate entity altogether. We were such an integral part of the plant leadership team, and we were looking at the loss elimination ourselves. We were looking at what is your contribution specific to procurement or purchasing that you can bring in addition to the quality losses or the purchasing negotiations, or how are you adding value to the supply chain. So he truly believes across supply chain, one is the core, which is make, back, ship, but then there are also enablers, and procurement became a key enabler to the organization. And it is such a big factor every single year. I remember where the majority of the cost savings used to come from purchasing. We would look at manufacturing, and then when there was cost pressure to say, how is that overall supply chain cost that we are going to promise to our bosses so that they can bring it back to the business, we would always run around to purchasing to say, hey, how much are you delivering? This was a very key critical factor. The second part is the entire organization was also connected in terms of if there are quality issues, how they are tying up, developing new suppliers, co-located suppliers, negotiations. And so I personally feel that um, this has been very natural in Procter and Gamble. I never felt that this is a separate entity. So
Yeah.
these silos need to be removed to make sure you're truly adding people. Everyone needs to understand what is that common objective. How can you work collaboratively? And at the end of the day, it's not procurement versus manufacturing. It's really who is our end customers. You're making sure that you have the right product at the right time in the right place. That common goal in PNG was very prominent and very natural. Procurement is a part of our team. It was very natural.
That's how it should be. And you reminded me why it was so different there. And you're right, it's a journey. In PNG, we kind of take it for granted that, we're a part of the core. In other organizations, it's an uphill challenge and something that many organizations still they're working on. Based on my experience, manufacturing is still better than the other industries in that regard. The cost savings are very important. Procurement, and they are enablers to that. But let's say a banking or a consulting, it's a very different setup. Madhav, I know you're really passionate about driving innovation, and love to hear your thoughts around what do you think sets apart organizations that successfully innovate versus those that don't? And you've shared some great pieces on LinkedIn around that, which I've enjoyed.
It's very simple. If you have fostered a culture in the organization where there is fear of failure, then I knew my boss is backing me up, not for the wrong reasons, but it is you tried it. We used to have an award called Better Luck Next Time. It was literally there. So say you are still rewarded, you tried. Sometimes a lot of companies expect something to be perfect. That fosters a culture of saying, I don't want to see reds on my scorecard. I only want to see all greens. So I will not promise more. And then this famous slogan in PNG which says celebrate the reds. So, where we are super stretching ourselves. And it is okay to say, I will go for it. I still remember occasions where my boss looked at my scorecard, it was all red, but I was still rated number one. And it was not about I have not delivered the expectation, but I was super stretched. I said, I will go for it. And when you are pushing your boundaries all the time, you are also questioning yourself. If I asked you to jump a 4 feet high vault versus I'm saying, how do you jump 10 feet around me? I'm not going to give you any aids to jump. How will you manage? So you'll be more creative. We were coming out with state of the art unit which would be completely lights out. So trying something for the first time, we did everything possible. We went through simulation models, we did uh, 3D models, but then we wanted to challenge ourselves to say we want to get into place where the entire operations we will have very few people. A lot of floors will be completely lights out. If I worked in Egypt, it's a lights out stuff. I worked in basically touchless. Even Germany, the plant was touchless and lights out in a lot of places. And now, how do you? But they come back and say we failed. Here are the learnings. What do we do next? How do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? So it is not who but what failed. If you are focusing on that, and how can I help you? Everybody's there to help you, whether it's your colleague, whether it's your immediate superior or whatever. And there is no hierarchy in the system. So you take situational leadership, like your boss might say, I'm zero in this, so you please take the lead. I don't understand this at all. It's not my area of expertise. So you please take the lead in this. And that culture is there in PNG. It's been there over years, and that is something that has led to creativity, innovation, people having that mindset to say, not being satisfied with the status quo. That healthy dissatisfaction is always there. When you move into a new role, it doesn't mean your previous person has done something wrong. It is just that you start punching holes from your side to say, hey, is there a better way of doing this? So someone takes something to one level and then you are pushing it to the next level. And that's how, without having any fear of failure.
Hearing you talk about all those things, that kind of explains certain things that I just do on instinct, which people find very weird outside PNG. But now get it why, where it comes from. Probably I spent more than 8 years doing those things and being rewarded for them. And that feels natural, going out and trying different things and failing and not being embarrassed about that. So that's very insightful, and I totally agree with that. Like, I have seen everyone wants to be innovative, but the biggest difference is that how comfortable are people with failure. Whether somebody is like not always rewarded, not everything needs to be rewarded as a success story, but just celebrating what's coming out as a learning out of that experiment.
It's very rewarding, I would say. When you look back,
Yeah, I mean, I've realized later on in my career, I think probably after a decade, that titles and money can only keep you happy up to a certain point. It's ultimately doing what fulfills you. That's what's really driving you. So I see you have done a lot of that right balance. You've gone out of the way in trying to promote women leadership in different ways. You always balance vulnerability and strength very well. I admire that about you. And I just remembered an incident that I want to share. When I was in procurement role, I was reporting to you, and then you helped me find a role in procurement because I needed to move to Mumbai at the time. I moved into procurement, and it had been a few years. And I remember we were in a role where, like, we had very different, let's say, thinking about like what procurement mandate was and what we were trying to do, and what was supply chain, let's say, understanding at the time. So initially it was different, but what I remember through that, like, I was worried, it's going to impact our relationship, but it never did. Like, you allowed room for me to have a different professional opinion, while at the same time, like, personal equation never changed because of that. So I'm really grateful that you allowed that space. And I remember I was 2 levels your junior. This has been amazing. Thank you for being a guest. Moreover, I have known you for at least 13 to 14 years now. It's been a privilege. I'm sure like a lot of our listeners would love to get connected with you, and get your guidance or mentorship.